You said that you're a trans woman.
Trans female, yes, sir.
Do you have a penis?
You're gonna kill kids! Their blood will be on your hands!
I am absolutely disgusted by the Republican majority's bullying, bigoted framing of an issue.
That includes restricting drag shows and who can participate in what sports, as well as banning certain types of medical care to transgender minors.
Tennessee Republicans have been going after trans people every way they can.
Where a panel of federal appeals court judges ruled 2-1 late Friday to allow a new state law banning gender-affirming care for transgender youth to take effect immediately.
I use it for the purpose of trying to protect children from being castrated and mutilated.
Senate Bill 1 aims to ban transgender youth from accessing what's known as gender-affirming care.
May disagree on an issue, but that does not mean that we have to target that person or that community.
Who knows what kind of violence I could be met with just because I have to pee.
They were telling her that she was going to hell. They were telling her that she will never be a real woman.
I grew up and was raised in Tennessee for 15 years until June of this year. Throughout my entire life, I've always had a disdain for the South, mostly because my own associations with the backwards history, to say the least. I would imagine my life moving somewhere far north as possible, somewhere like Minnesota, where I now reside. It was only until recently where I started to appreciate the South in a way I've never understood. I would always see people flying the Tennessee state flag and get confused. Why do you need to fly the flag? We know where we are, what's the point? Most of my growing up, I've hated where I'd lived. I hated my small town and I wanted to break free. Now that I've actually done it, I've missed my old home so much. Recently, I visited my hometown for a friend's birthday. I was there for a little over a week, and going back made me realize just how miserable I was. It felt like I was trapped in this tiny little horror movie town, and no matter what, I couldn't escape. I was constantly and seemingly unexplainably anxious the entire time. Maybe a part of that was knowing I had been 3 months on testosterone, a form of medical care which would now be illegal for me to even have access to. Bill SB 2696 is usually described as like a youth protection bill. It is not. Protecting youth from getting castrated, as described by a lot of senators and just people speaking on this issue, that's not what the gender affirming care is. As a trans person who is underage, I don't think that underage trans people should have access to surgeries. That's my personal opinion. Do I think that we should ban all gender affirming care? A lot of people don't understand that typically the first steps in hormone therapy are hormone blockers, which just stops puberty. A lot of people don't get that that's reversible. They know that testosterone or estrogen, that's not reversible after a certain amount of time. Like certain aspects of starting those types of hormones, you can't reverse some of the effects of that. But hormone blockers are really just a pause in puberty, and once you stop taking them, puberty just continues. I also want to say that there's a lot of thought and care that goes into children starting hormone therapy, and there's no reason for a child to start hormone therapy, like actually start something like estrogen or testosterone, unless they've already had puberty or they're currently going through puberty. Like an 8-year-old isn't going to start taking estrogen because an 8-year-old wouldn't normally be going through puberty. Another talking point for Save the Children is the notion that young girls decide to be trans because they are going through puberty and their bodies are changing and they don't feel comfortable in their bodies and they don't know how to express themselves, or some people even go as far as to say that they've even been like sexually abused.
And this is happening to parents all across the country. Teenage girls all of a sudden deciding with their friends they're trans, wanting surgeries and hormones and getting them.
Now, I'm not going to go ahead and speak for everyone, but I'm going to go ahead and say for me, that's not why I transitioned. I didn't transition because I immediately was like, I hate my body, I must be a boy. That's not, I feel like there's a lot more thought that goes into things like that, more often than not. And I think that there should be a lot more education on transness in general. So if young girls do hate their body, you know, they won't think that, am I a boy? If I hate my body, then am I a boy? Because that doesn't mean that you're the opposite gender as soon as you don't like something about your body. And I'm gonna go ahead and say that, sure, there might completely be an argument that there are a lot of teenage girls who go through things like this and then are misdiagnosed or whatever as being trans. I think that that's a good conversation to have, but I also think that it's not a bad thing to explore your own gender and to experiment with things. That's why typically hormone blockers are used before hormone therapy, like taking estrogen or taking testosterone. Because hormone blockers, again, you can just stop taking them at any time. If you're like, you know what, no, this doesn't feel good, I am a girl, you can just stop taking those. And then puberty will keep on going and nothing, like, your hormone levels will be fine and normal and nothing will come of it. I also want to say it's not trans people's fault if a cis person decides to transition because they misunderstand that they have gender dysphoria and they have life-altering surgeries or they start taking hormones and then their body is permanently changed. You cannot blame trans people for that. You can blame miseducation and you can blame doctors for not being educated themselves or maybe being too quick to diagnose with something. You can blame therapists for being too quick to diagnose with something. You can blame that person. I'm not going to go ahead and say blame that person. I don't think it's entirely that, like, people who do transitions faults when they realize, like, oh, I'm not trans. I'm not going to go ahead and say that. I take that back. But don't blame trans people for that. There's so many videos. There's a whole documentary by PragerU where they try and make trans people seem like we're all evil and we're like, yes, we're all trying to make everyone trans. Girl, I don't want everyone on the planet to be trans. If you feel a certain way and you feel like, hey, this is not who I am, be who you are. That's literally it. That's the entire point of this. Like, actually, like, there's no secret trans agenda.
I just want to ask a question. Who really cares?
I'm sure you've heard the statistic of suicide rates among trans people, and it's not a fun statistic to talk about, but it is important. And it might get tiring to hear these numbers all the time, especially if you are educated on this or you're trans yourself and you get these numbers a lot if you just follow up on news like this. And I've seen people say that these numbers are showing why transness is bad because it causes people to be suicidal. Being trans does not cause people to be suicidal. What causes people to be suicidal from the effects of being trans is when people target them for being trans and people make laws against them, like targeting them against their health care and against just them existing in a public space. That is what causes suicide. That is what causes suicidal thoughts, not just transitioning. That's not how that works. Currently, there is no way to truly combat this or fight against it if you're just a regular citizen. If you work in the government, you know, you have a lot more say than everything else. If you're just a regular person, there's really not much you can do, but you can call your senators, you can call people that work for your government, you can tell them your thoughts and ideas about these laws that are passing or going to be passing, or just, you know, like bills that are being talked about. You can educate yourself and you can educate those around you and you can be more aware of things that are happening. It's a kind of sad reality, but that is honestly all that we can do right now. The way government is supposed to work, I'm not sure if you knew about this, it's supposed to be a person who's like voicing the people. And currently that's not how our government works. It's a person who's voicing bad ideas and enforcing really stupid things. So yeah, this was maybe probably very anticlimactic. I don't really have a big solution to end transphobia, I guess. I don't know, like, that's not really plausible which sucks, but I mean, we keep on living. This was the first time I've ever like sat down and made a fully fleshed video essay. It's not very good. It's messy. I don't have any equipment. I'm filming with my phone and I'm using my phone's microphone. Yeah, and I've filmed all of these clips like only a few weeks apart, and each time my voice gets like deeper and deeper. And I also just woke up, so that doesn't help, but you know.
Alabama's got me so upset. Tennessee's made me lose my rest. Everybody knows about Mississippi. Goddamn. Alabama's got me so upset. And Watts has made me lose my rest. Everybody knows